My name is Amani, and I'm about to tell you the story of how I orchestrated my sweet, sweet revenge. You're just not cut out for this job. Brenda, my manager, my oh-so-condescending, credit-stealing manager, declared, her voice dripping with a kind of false sympathy that made my teeth grind. I'd heard it all before, the subtly veiled insults, the pointed criticisms disguised as constructive feedback, and of course the grand finale, Brenda presenting my ideas as her own in board meetings, basking in the accolades while I sat there, a simmering volcano of suppressed rage. Years I'd poured my heart and soul into this company, fueled by ambition and a genuine belief in what we were doing. Years Brenda had spent strategically positioning herself in my path, a corporate parasite sucking the lifeblood out of my creativity. And now, after all the late nights, the ignored weekends, the sacrifices I'd made, she had the audacity to tell me I wasn't good enough? Normally, I'm a fighter, a woman who stands her ground. But something in me snapped. Maybe it was the sheer exhaustion, the bone-deep weariness of battling a system rigged against me. Or maybe, deep down, I knew I was capable of something bigger, something better. So, instead of launching into a tirade that would have been immensely satisfying but ultimately self-destructive, I simply looked her in the eye, a strange calmness settling over me. "I understand," I said, my voice surprisingly even. "I'll leave on Friday, but Monday will be interesting." Brenda, bless her naive heart, just rolled her eyes. She probably thought I was going to spend the weekend sobbing into a tub of ice cream, maybe write a strongly worded resignation letter filled with childish insults. She had no idea. Oh, honey, Monday was going to be very interesting. The moment I walked out of Brenda's office, a plan began to formulate in my mind, intricate and detailed, like a beautiful, vengeful tapestry. It was time to unleash my inner Machiavelli. First things first. Damage control. I needed allies, people who knew the truth about Brenda, people who had witnessed her blatant theft of my ideas. Luckily, I had a few. I started with David, the senior programmer. He was a quiet, unassuming guy, but brilliant, and he'd always seemed a little uncomfortable with Brenda's constant self-promotion. I found him in the break room, staring blankly at a vending machine. "David," I said, "can I talk to you for a minute?" I laid it all out for him. The years of Brenda taking credit, the unfair dismissal, the whole shebang. I didn't ask for sympathy. I asked for help. "Brenda's been using my algorithms for the past 3 quarters, I explained, "and I've been keeping her back door open. I need you on Monday to keep it open while I finish something." He looked shocked, then thoughtful. "You know, I always wondered how she suddenly became a coding genius," he mumbled. A flicker of determination appeared in his eyes. "What do you need me to do?" One down, several to go. Next on my list was Maria from marketing. She was sharp, savvy, and had a wicked sense of humor. More importantly, she'd been on the receiving end of Brenda's condescending remarks one too many times. "Maria, girl, you won't believe what just happened," I said, cornering her near the water cooler. I gave her the abridged version of the Brenda saga, focusing on the fact that Brenda had consistently undermined Maria's marketing campaigns and stolen her best ideas. "You're kidding me, right?" Maria said, her eyes narrowing. "That woman is a menace. What are you planning?" I just smiled mysteriously. "Let's just say Monday is going to be a very bad day for Brenda." I spent the rest of the week meticulously laying the groundwork for my grand finale. I downloaded every project I had ever worked on, every document I had ever created, every email I had ever sent. I backed everything up onto multiple hard drives, just to be safe. Then I started to craft my masterpiece, my weapon of choice, a PowerPoint presentation. Sounds boring, right? But trust me, this was no ordinary PowerPoint. This was a meticulously crafted expose, a damning indictment of Brenda's fraudulent behavior presented in clear, concise bullet points, backed up by irrefutable evidence. I included screenshots of emails where I'd clearly outlined my ideas, only to have Brenda later present them as her own. I included data charts proving the success of my projects, conveniently attributed to Brenda in quarterly reports. I even included a meticulously researched analysis of Brenda's performance reviews, highlighting the suspiciously vague descriptions of her achievements. I spent countless hours perfecting it, making sure every detail was accurate, every argument airtight. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my work, my reputation, my dignity. Friday arrived, and I packed up my desk, a bittersweet feeling washing over me. It was sad to leave the job I'd once loved, but the anticipation of what was to come overshadowed the sadness. Brenda, of course, couldn't resist a final jab. "So, Imani," she said, leaning against my cubicle, a smug smile on her face. "Excited for your new opportunity?" "More than you know, Brenda," I replied, returning her smile with one of my own, a smile that hinted at the storm brewing beneath the surface. I walked out of the office with my head held high, leaving Brenda in my dust. The weekend was mine to prepare, to strategize, to ensure that Monday would be a day she would never forget. Monday morning dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the dark cloud about to descend on Brenda's career. I woke up early, feeling a strange mix of excitement and nerves. I reviewed my PowerPoint presentation one last time, making sure everything was perfect. Then I got dressed, choosing an outfit that exuded confidence and competence. I wanted to look like the successful, intelligent woman I was, not the victim Brenda had tried to portray me as. I arrived at the office a little before 8 a.m., armed with my trusty laptop and a USB drive containing my PowerPoint presentation. David was already at his desk, looking slightly apprehensive. "Ready?" I asked. He nodded, a determined glint in his eyes. "Let's do this." My plan hinged on exploiting a vulnerability in the company's internal network, a backdoor that I had intentionally left open when designing a new security protocol months ago, a way for me to be in the system, even if I wasn't. With David's help, I needed to subtly disrupt the main server, creating a small crisis that only I could solve. At 9 a.m., the weekly staff meeting began. Brenda, as usual, was holding court, droning on about quarterly projections and congratulating herself on the team's amazing performance. I sat quietly in the back, waiting for my moment. That's when David gave me the signal. "Brenda," I said, interrupting her mid-sentence. All eyes turned to me. "I think we have a problem with the network." Brenda scoffed. "What are you talking about, Imani? I haven't heard anything." "Actually, I just received an alert," David chimed in, his voice surprisingly assertive. "It looks like there's some kind of system crash. It might affect the entire database." Panic flickered across Brenda's face. She was technologically clueless, completely reliant on David and the IT department to keep things running smoothly. An internal system going down would be a major catastrophe, potentially costing the company thousands of dollars. It was the perfect distraction. "Well, fix it," she snapped at David. "That's what we pay you for." "I'm trying," David said, "but it's a complex issue. I don't know if I can resolve it quickly." "What do you mean you don't know?" Brenda's voice was rising in pitch. "We have a major presentation to the board this afternoon. We can't afford to have the system down." This was my cue. "Actually, I might be able to help," I said, standing up. "I designed the current system architecture and security protocols. I know the ins and outs of it better than anyone." Brenda hesitated. She hated to admit that I was needed, but the desperation in her eyes betrayed her. "Fine," she said grudgingly, "but make it quick. We don't have all day." I walked confidently to the front of the room, plugging my laptop into the projector. "First, I need to run a diagnostic test to see exactly what's going on," I said, typing rapidly. "This might take a few minutes." While the diagnostic test was running, I casually opened my PowerPoint presentation. Brenda, engrossed in trying to manage the chaos around her, didn't notice. When the diagnostic test was complete, I turned to face the room. "Okay," I said, my voice clear and steady. It looks like we have a serious problem. But before I fix it, I think there's something else you all need to see. I clicked to the next slide. This, I said, gesturing to the title slide, is a presentation I call The Truth About Brenda. A collective gasp filled the room. Brenda went white as a ghost. What is this? She stammered. Imani, what are you doing? I'm exposing you, Brenda, I said, my voice dripping with steel. I'm showing everyone how you've been stealing my ideas, undermining my work, and taking credit for my achievements for years. I went through the presentation slide by slide, presenting the evidence, outlining my arguments, laying bare Brenda's deceitful behavior. Maria from marketing nodded in agreement as I detailed how Brenda had sabotaged her campaigns. David shifted nervously in his seat, but he didn't interrupt. He knew the truth. As I reached the final slide, a picture of Brenda beaming at a company event, I paused for dramatic effect. So, there you have it, I said. The real Brenda, a fraud, a thief, and a terrible manager. The room was silent. Everyone was staring at Brenda, their faces a mixture of shock, disbelief, and disgust. Finally, the CEO, Mr. Thompson, spoke. Brenda, he said, his voice cold and hard. Is this true? Brenda opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She was completely exposed, her lies laid bare for all to see. I think we all know the answer to that question, Mr. Thompson said, turning to me. Imani, thank you for bringing this to our attention. I had no idea this was going on. He turned back to Brenda. You're fired, Brenda. Security will escort you out of the building. Brenda's face crumpled, years of lies and arrogance melting into desperate tears. She tried to argue, to plead, to deny, but it was no use. The damage was done. As security led her away, I felt a wave of satisfaction wash over me. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. It was about reclaiming my power, my voice, my worth. Mr. Thompson turned to me, his expression serious. Imani, he said, I owe you an apology. We all do. You've been a valuable asset to this company, and we made a terrible mistake in letting you go. He paused, then continued. I want you to stay, Imani. I want you to take Brenda's place as manager. You've earned it. I considered his offer for a moment. Part of me wanted to say yes, to prove that I could succeed, to show Brenda that I was more than capable. But another part of me knew that this wasn't the place for me anymore. The years of resentment, the constant battles, the feeling of being undervalued had taken their toll. Thank you, Mr. Thompson, I said, but I'm afraid I have to decline. I appreciate the offer, but I think it's time for me to move on to something new. He looked disappointed, but he understood. I respect your decision, he said, but I want you to know that you'll always have a place here. And if you ever need a reference, don't hesitate to ask. I packed up my things, a sense of closure washing over me. As I walked out of the office, I couldn't help but smile. Monday had been interesting indeed. News of Brenda's spectacular downfall spread like wildfire throughout the industry. I received calls from headhunters and former colleagues, all eager to offer me new opportunities. I even got a text from Brenda, a pathetic string of misspelled words and desperate apologies. I deleted it without responding. The truth is, I didn't want to climb the corporate ladder anymore. I didn't want to play the game, to fight for recognition, to constantly prove my worth. I wanted to create something of my own, something that reflected my values, my passion, my vision. So that's exactly what I did. I took the money I'd saved, the contacts I'd made, and the skills I'd honed, and I started my own business, a business where creativity was encouraged, where hard work was rewarded, and where everyone was treated with respect. And you know what? It's been the most challenging and rewarding experience of my life. I'm finally in control of my own destiny, and I'm surrounded by people who believe in me, who appreciate me, and who are just as passionate about our mission as I am. Brenda may have thought she was destroying my career, but she was actually setting me free. She pushed me to realize my own potential, to take a risk, to create something extraordinary. So, thank you, Brenda.